He didn't think you'd actually leave. He thought you'd wait. He assumed your silence was temporary, your distance just a test. But what happens when he finally realizes you're not coming back? That you're not just gone for now, you've moved on, truly, deeply, and without looking over your shoulder? At first it's confusion, then ego kicks in. How could she leave? Why isn't she reaching out? That's when the memories hit. The way you made him feel, the way you stood by him, the way you loved him without holding back. And suddenly he's looking at an empty space in his life that used to be you, but now it's filled with silence, no texts, no second chances, just the reality that you're no longer accessible. He'll try to test the waters, subtle messages, breadcrumb attention, but you're not the same. You've become stronger. You've healed. You've stopped needing closure because you became the closure. And as you rise, thriving without him, he sees it. The woman he thought would always be there is now the one he can't reach. And that realization is not just painful, it's transformative. For him, for you, for everything that comes next. When you truly let go, not pretend to let go, not do it as a tactic, but actually deeply, wholeheartedly let go of someone, you change the entire dynamic. And here's the important part. You're not letting go to teach him a lesson. You're not walking away to make him chase you. You're walking away because you finally remembered who you are. You've remembered that your peace, your joy, your sense of worth, none of those things should be contingent on whether someone else chooses you. Most people never get to this point. They stay stuck in a loop. They threaten to leave, but don't. They try to show strength, but secretly hope the other person notices and pulls them back in. That's not power, that's performance. And it's exhausting. Real letting go is different. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not even angry. It's quiet, it's steady, and it comes from a place of deep self-respect. The moment you do this, the power shifts. And it's not because you're trying to gain power, it's because you've stopped giving it away. The second he senses that you've emotionally disconnected, that you're no longer looking over your shoulder hoping he'll catch up, something changes in him. He might not show it right away, but internally the ground starts to move. Because for the first time, he realizes you're no longer in the palm of his hand. You see, people often assume the one who walks away is the one who feels nothing. But more often than not, the one who walks has simply felt everything already. Every ignored message, every half-hearted plan, every moment of doubt, every subtle disappointment that built up over time. You didn't just walk away. You grew out of the space you were once trying so hard to fit into. And when someone has truly outgrown something, there's no going back. That's what he starts to feel. At first, it's subtle. Maybe you stop initiating. Maybe your responses get shorter. Maybe you're less available, not out of spite, but because you've started filling your time with people and things that actually bring you joy. Maybe you stop reacting to the same old games. You stop explaining yourself, justifying your worth, proving your love. And that's when it hits him. You're not just taking space. You've stepped off the stage completely. It's a strange moment for him because up until now, he's been used to the version of you that held on, the version that waited, that hoped, that compromised. He got comfortable with that. And in that comfort, he may have convinced himself you'd always be there. But now that you're gone, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, it triggers something he didn't expect. It's not immediate regret, it's disorientation. Because he's so used to your energy being available, to your love being accessible. And now, without warning, that supply has been cut off. Not as punishment, but as a byproduct of your healing. And when someone no longer has access to what they once took for granted, they start to question themselves. Did I mess this up? Was she really what I needed all along? Why didn't I see it sooner? But none of that happens until you make that internal decision, I'm done living in emotional limbo. That's the moment you stop waiting for clarity from him and start creating clarity for yourself. And it's powerful because it shows up in the little things. Your voice, your body language, your choices. You're not performing detachment, you are detached. You're not pretending you're over it. You've actually started building something better. The beauty is, once you get to this place, his response becomes irrelevant. Not because you don't care, but because you're no longer dependent on it. If he reaches out, fine. If he doesn't, also fine. You're not living in reaction anymore. You're not stuck hoping his next move will validate your worth. Because your worth isn't on the line anymore. It's anchored in you, where it always belonged. And look, sometimes when a man feels that shift, he wakes up. He sees you clearly, maybe for the first time. And other times he doesn't. Either way, your power is the same. Because the moment you stopped chasing love that wasn't chasing you back, you stepped into a different frequency, one where you no longer beg to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. And when he realizes you're not coming back, that's when everything he took for granted begins to haunt him. When someone walks away, especially from a situation where they've been taken for granted, it creates a silence that's far louder than any argument, any emotional plea, or any late night text. That silence, it lingers. It creates space. And in that space, something interesting happens. Clarity, not always right away, but over time, it shows up like a wave, sometimes gently creeping in, other times crashing hard. The moment he realizes you're not coming back, really not coming back, that clarity becomes unavoidable. See, when you were still answering messages, still holding on to hope, still giving him the benefit of the doubt, he had the luxury of delaying his self-reflection. He could keep pushing things to the side because deep down, he felt safe knowing you were still there. Even if you weren't happy, you were available. He didn't have to confront what he might be losing because you hadn't truly left. But when that stops, when you stop showing up with explanations, when you stop giving energy to the what ifs and the maybe some days, that's when it finally starts to click for him. That's when it becomes real. And it's not always a dramatic realization. It can be incredibly subtle. Maybe he's out with friends and hears your favorite song, and it suddenly doesn't just remind him of you, it reminds him that he can't just call you anymore. Or maybe he's scrolling through his phone late at night, wondering why it's so quiet, and notices that your name hasn't lit up the screen in weeks. It's in those little, quiet moments, in the absence of your attention, that the real impact starts to settle in. He starts to question everything. Was she really the problem, or was I just not showing up? That doubt, that's clarity knocking. You see, when you're still around, he can blame circumstances. He can convince himself that maybe it just wasn't the right time, or that you were asking for too much, or that you were being emotional. But when you've gone silent, when your energy is no longer feeding the connection, he has no one left to blame. It's just him and the truth. He starts to look back, and not just at the arguments or the tension. He starts remembering the laughs, the way you supported him when things got tough, the way you believed in him even when he didn't deserve it, the way you still showed up with love even when you weren't getting it in return. It hits him differently when you're not there to give it anymore. He realizes that those things didn't come easy. They came from someone who chose him. And that's where the pain kicks in, because he starts to understand that he wasn't chosen by default. He was chosen deliberately, and now he's no longer being chosen. And here's the real irony. When he had access to you, he may have acted indifferent, even aloof. But now that he doesn't, every little reminder of you carries weight. Things that once felt ordinary now feel extraordinary in your absence. The way you laughed, the way you said his name, the way you cared about the details. And suddenly, he doesn't just remember the relationship, he remembers you. Not the version he saw through the lens of complacency, but the version that now lives in his mind as something he may never get back. That's when it burns. But let me tell you something important. You can't orchestrate this moment. You can't manufacture clarity in someone else's mind by pretending to walk away. This kind of realization only comes when your decision to move on is real, when it's rooted in your own peace, not in the hope that he'll chase after you. You walk away because you know staying would mean continuing to betray yourself. And ironically, it's in that decision, the one that wasn't about him at all, that he begins to see what he never saw clearly before. When someone no longer feels your energy, they realize just how powerful your presence really was. And for some men, that's the beginning of growth. For others, it's just regret. But either way, that moment of realization only arrives when you've stopped making your absence conditional, when you've stopped treating your silence as a strategy and started treating it as your standard. So if you're sitting there wondering if he'll ever get it, if he'll ever realize what he lost, understand this. That clarity isn't yours to deliver. It's his to earn. And the only way he can earn it is in your absence. Let him feel it. Let him sit with it. Let the silence do what your words never could. Because the day he realizes you're not coming back is the day he finally sees what he never truly appreciated when you were still there. You know what's fascinating? When you finally walk away, actually walk away, not in a dramatic, performative way, but in that quiet, certain, self-respecting way, it messes with his mind in ways he never expected. Because up until that moment, he probably thought he had time to figure things out, time to take you for granted, time to keep you in his orbit while he flirted with indecision or entertained distractions. But the second you step out of that story, the real shift begins. At first, he might not even notice it. It might feel like just another day without a message from you, another evening without your voice at the end of it. But then something happens, a memory sneaks in, a scent, a song, a place you used to go together. And suddenly he starts thinking about the version of you that showed up for him, the version that cared deeply, gave generously, forgave often, and stood by him even when he wasn't his best self. And here's the twist. He starts to romanticize it. He starts looking back on all the moments you shared through a new lens, not because they were perfect, but because they were real. There was connection, there was depth. You didn't play games. You gave him your heart. And in a world full of half-hearted connections and attention spans that flicker like candle flames in the wind, that meant something, even if he didn't realize it in the moment. That realization stings. It creeps in slowly, in quiet moments, when there's no distraction, no one else in his bed, no ego to protect him, and he starts to replay it all. The inside jokes, the way you laughed at his ridiculous ideas, the way you saw him when no one else did. The truth is, there's a certain kind of intimacy you gave him that's not easy to find again. It's not the sex, it's not the nights out, it's the way you were there, the way you showed up consistently, genuinely, without needing to be asked. And because you're gone now, that emotional safety net, it's been yanked away. He no longer has that comfort of knowing your one phone call, one apology, one I miss you away. Because this time you didn't just threaten to leave, you left. And you left with peace, with dignity, and with a silence that speaks louder than all the conversations that used to go in circles. That silence, that's what he hears now. It echoes. It forces him to sit with himself, to wonder if he really maximized what he had, to ask himself whether the freedom he thought he wanted was really worth what he gave up. And that's the part that hurts him most, not the fact that you're gone, but the fact that you were never the problem. You were the gift, the presence, the anchor. Now he's left replaying the highlight reel in his mind, the way your hand fit in his, the way you listened when he talked about his fears, the way you celebrated his small wins, even when he didn't think they mattered. He starts to realize that those weren't just nice moments, they were rare. And rare becomes precious once it's no longer available. He'll tell himself stories, of course, that maybe you'll come back, that maybe if he sends a message, you'll respond the way you used to. But with every day that passes and he doesn't hear from you, the reality starts to sink in. You're not waiting anymore. You've outgrown the version of him who couldn't see your value when you were standing right in front of him. And this is where it gets uncomfortable for him, because regret doesn't just sit quietly. It scratches, it aches, it gnaws at the part of him that knows deep down he messed up something real, something meaningful. And worse than that, he knows he might not get another shot, because now you're different, stronger, wiser, not harder, not closed off, but clearer. You know what you're worth now. You're not bitter, you're better. And he feels that shift. He senses it. You're no longer the person who would settle for breadcrumbs, who would rationalize red flags, who would stay just because the history between you felt comfortable. That version of you is gone. And the new version, the one who left and actually meant it, she's magnetic. Not because she's playing hard to get, but because she is hard to get, because she finally knows she deserves more than bare minimum love. That kind of self-respect is powerful, it's rare, and it forces him to look at you not just as someone he misses, but as someone he lost. So now he sits with the reality, he remembers, he replays, he regrets. But whether or not he ever says it, whether or not he ever reaches out, whether or not he ever changes, it no longer matters, because you've already moved on. And he's just now realizing you're not coming back. You know, it's fascinating. And when someone realizes you're truly not coming back, the first thing that hits them isn't always heartbreak. It's not love, it's ego. That might sound harsh, but it's the truth most people don't want to admit. The ego, that inner voice that says, I can have her anytime I want, takes the first hit. Because for so long, he thought you were there. You were the constant, the dependable one, the one who forgave, who waited, who hoped. And when that stops, when he senses that shift, that's when his ego starts to panic. It's not that he suddenly understands what he lost, not yet. At first, it's just the idea that you don't need him anymore that drives him mad. You're not reaching out. You're not showing signs of missing him. You've gone silent, and not in a petty or manipulative way. You've gone silent because you've actually moved on in your heart. And that's terrifying, because it means he no longer has access to your world. He thought he had time, that you'd wait, that you'd always be there when he circled back. Because in the past, maybe you were. Maybe every time he withdrew, you leaned in. Every time he pulled away, you reached out. But not this time. And that's what stings the most. Not because he suddenly realizes how deeply he loves you. That might come later. No, what's hitting him now is the fact that his influence over you is gone. He's not the sun you orbit anymore. You stopped orbiting altogether. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. In that moment, a lot of men confuse this feeling with missing you. They think, I feel off, I feel uncomfortable, I feel something's wrong, I must want her back. But what they're actually feeling is the void where their ego used to be fed. It's not love, it's loss of control. It's the shock of your absence. He sends that message. You know the one, the casual, hey, have you been? Or the late night, I've been thinking about you. And it's not always because he's done the hard work to grow or reflect. Sometimes it's just a reflex, a way to see if you'll still answer, to check if he still has a foot in the door. That's the test. Not for him, for you. Because if you jump at that message, if you respond the way you used to, you give the ego what it wants. You soothe the discomfort. You let him know, I'm still here. But if you don't, if you take your time or you don't respond at all, he's forced to reckon with something deeper. That's when the actual heartache begins. That's when he starts asking himself questions that he didn't ask when he had you. Why did I let her go? Why didn't I fight harder? Why did I think someone like her would always be there? Now it's no longer about ego. Now it's about regret, about reality setting in. And not everyone reaches this point. Some people stay in their ego forever, chasing the next distraction, telling themselves, you didn't matter that much. But for the ones who do feel deeply, who do grow, this is when the real shift happens, because he starts to look at your absence and realize it wasn't just about you not calling. It was about the energy you brought into his life, the peace, the warmth, the way you loved him when you didn't have to, and more importantly, the way you stopped loving him when he didn't deserve it. It's funny how people need distance to see clearly. Up close, they get used to you. They normalize your kindness. They take it for granted. But pull back far enough, and suddenly your love is seen in full color. They remember the little things, the messages, just to check in, the way you showed up when it mattered, the way you believed in them even when they didn't believe in themselves. And by the time they realize all that, sometimes it's too late, because you've grown, you've changed, you've rebuilt your confidence, not out of spite, but out of necessity. You've become someone even stronger than who you were with him. And maybe, just maybe, you're no longer interested in revisiting a chapter that taught you your value by denying it. So when he realizes you're not coming back, it's not always a romantic movie ending. Sometimes it's a slow, aching regret that lingers. Sometimes it's the understanding that he lost someone extraordinary because he couldn't see her while she was standing right in front of him. And by then, you're already gone. When he feels your absence, that's when you'll start to notice little signals. Those low-effort reach-outs that come disguised as care, curiosity, or even guilt. It might be a simple, hey, just thinking about you. Or a late night, I miss you. Sometimes it's a meme, a song, or a random check-in like, how have you been? And I know, it can feel like a wave of relief, like all the pain, all the waiting, all the questions might finally be answered, that maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of something real again. But I want you to understand something very clearly. This initial contact, it's not always what it seems. In fact, in many cases, it's not coming from a place of deep transformation. It's not coming from a man who's done the emotional work, faced his own patterns, and realized what he truly wants in a partner. Often, it's just a test. He's testing the waters, seeing if the door is still open, if you'll still respond, if the emotional safety net he took for granted is still there, waiting for him to fall back into. And it's subtle. It doesn't look like manipulation because it's wrapped in softness, in nostalgia, in familiar comfort. But you have to recognize what's happening beneath the surface. He's not showing up for you. He's just showing up enough to soothe his ego, to ease the discomfort of losing you without actually committing to getting you back. So what do most people do when this happens? They get excited. They respond right away. They read into every word, every emoji, every moment of silence. They think, maybe he misses me. Maybe he's changed. And that's where they give their power away, because in that moment, they become emotionally available again to someone who hasn't proven themselves. What I want you to do is something different, something stronger. When he sends that first message, don't immediately reply. Don't fall into the trap of thinking this is your moment. Because unless he's shown up with clarity, effort, consistency, and genuine remorse, it's not. A casual text is not a declaration. A message at midnight is not a commitment. And a breadcrumb of attention is not a meal. Don't be the lifeboat he climbs into when the seas get rough. You're not here to rescue someone who didn't value the home you built together. You're not here to make it easy for him to feel better about what he let go. You walked away because something was broken, either his effort, his communication, or his ability to meet your needs. None of that is fixed with a hey. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. Real change takes time. It takes facing the pain of your absence and sitting with the consequences of their choices. If he hasn't gone through that journey, then what he's doing is reacting, not growing. And a reaction is fleeting. But growth leads to something sustainable. When someone really gets it, when they've truly realized what they lost, they don't test you with breadcrumbs. They come to the table with a full offering. They take responsibility, they acknowledge how they made you feel, and they ask what it would take to rebuild trust. They're consistent, they're patient, and they're prepared for the answer to be no, because they know the pain they caused might have cost them the chance. But until that happens, you have to hold the line. You have to protect your peace. That means not answering the bait, not jumping back into old patterns, not being emotionally available to someone who hasn't earned that access again. Because every time you respond to a breadcrumb, you send the message, you don't need to do better. This is enough. And that's not the story you want to tell. You want to tell the story of someone who respects themselves enough to wait for something real, who's not just flattered by attention, but empowered by discernment. Because here's the beautiful irony of it all. When you don't respond to the test, when you stay grounded in your worth, that's when the real reckoning happens for him. That's when he realizes that the version of you he once knew is gone, that the access he used to have isn't guaranteed anymore, that the woman who once waited, replied, hoped, and gave chances no longer does, and if he's the right person. That moment will shake him. It will either move him to step up in a way he never has before, or he'll fade away, revealing the truth you needed to see all along. Either way, you win, because you stayed loyal to the one person who should never be abandoned in this process, you. So when he finally reaches out, testing to see if you're still there, just remember, you're not here to be a second chance for someone who didn't see your value the first time. You want to know what really makes someone sit up and think twice after you're gone? It's not the dramatic exit. It's not the angry text. It's not even the silence right after the breakup. What truly stops them in their tracks is when you start showing up in your life again, fully, unapologetically, without them. When a woman reclaims her power after heartbreak, it sends a message that's louder than anything she could say. I don't need you to be whole. And that realization, it hits hard. You see, most people walk away from a relationship hoping the other person notices. They think, if I pull away, maybe he'll come running. Maybe he'll realize what he lost. But that's not real walking away. That's just waiting in disguise. Real strength, real power, that shows up when you're no longer performing for someone else's attention, but instead you're investing in yourself, your peace, your joy, your growth. That's when you become magnetic. He starts watching from a distance, maybe through mutual friends, maybe through social media, maybe just in his thoughts. He sees you laughing again. Not the forced smile you wore near the end when things were crumbling, but the kind of laugh that comes from real joy, from real freedom. You're glowing, you're focused. You've stopped talking about him, stopped stalking his updates, stopped leaving any emotional trace that he still owns a piece of you. And that silence, that space, it speaks volumes. It tells him that you're not just coping, you're creating a new life, a better standard, a version of you that no longer waits around hoping he'll come to his senses. And if he does come back around, he's not just trying to win you over, he's trying to catch up. You see, the moment he realizes you're not coming back, something strange happens. His memory becomes selective. He starts remembering the warmth in your voice, the way you believed in him, the softness in your presence. Things he once dismissed as normal now feel irreplaceable. But this time, he doesn't just miss you, he misses the version of himself that he was when you were around. That version that felt loved, admired, important. And now, it's gone. Because you're gone. And maybe, just maybe, he underestimated your strength. He thought you'd linger a bit longer. He thought you'd answer his check-in text. He thought you'd be there emotionally available just in case he decided he missed you. But instead, you did something rare. You healed. Not to make him jealous, not to get noticed, but because your heart was too valuable to leave shattered. You started filling your life with people who value you, with energy that nourishes you, with goals that stretch you. You stopped replaying the past and started building something better for you. And that's what people don't understand. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't scream, "Look at me, I'm better off without you." Confidence just lives. It wakes up early. It focuses on growth. It surrounds itself with love that doesn't need convincing. And when someone who once had access to you sees that, it creates a kind of longing that no words can fix. He doesn't just regret what he did, he regrets who he was when he had you. Because now, from a distance, he sees the level of woman you've become, and he knows she wouldn't even look twice at the man he used to be. That's what happens when you stop showing up for someone who took your presence for granted. You stop being predictable, you stop being available, and suddenly he realizes not only are you not coming back, but you're moving forward in a direction where he can't follow unless he grows. And here's the beautiful part. By the time he realizes all of this, by the time he's truly ready, you might not want him anymore. Not out of bitterness, but because you've raised your standards. You've seen your value. You've built a life so rich and meaningful that the version of you who once waited for him no longer exists. And that's the moment he understands he didn't just lose you, he lost the chance to grow alongside you. That's what happens when he realizes you're not coming back.